and welcome back to Sociology. This chapter is going to be on socialization. Now this will also be done in 2 weeks. Part 1 today, this week, and then next week will be part 2. So now, on a cold winter day in 1938, a social worker walked quickly to the door of a rural Pennsylvania farmhouse. They were investigating a case of possible child abuse. The social worker entered the home and soon discovered a 5-year-old girl hidden in a second-floor storage room. The child, whose name was Anna, was wedged into an old chair with her arms tied above her head so that she couldn't move. She was wearing filthy clothes, and her arms and legs were thin, and pretty much thin as matchsticks. Anna's situation was tragic. She was born in 1932 and was to an unmarried and mentally impaired woman of 26 who lived with her strict father. Angry about his daughter's illegitimate motherhood, the grandfather didn't even want to have the child in the house. And for the first 6 months of that child's life, Anna was passed among several welfare agencies, but her mother was unable to pay for her care, and Anna was returned to the hostile home of her grandfather. To lessen the grandfather's anger, Anna's mother kept her in the storage room and gave her just enough milk to keep her alive. There she stayed, day after day, month after month, with almost no human contact enduring for 5 years. Learning of the discovery of Anna, sociologist Kinsley Davis immediately went to see her. He found her with the local officials at a county home. Davis was stunned by the emaciated child who could not laugh, speak, or even smile. Anna was completely unresponsive, as if alone in an empty world. Now, unfortunately, Anna has not been the only child to have this sort of an experience. These examples do at least suggest that the ability to learn culture has become, this ability to learn culture and become human is only a potential. In order for it to be actualized, socialization must unleash this potential. Now, in this chapter, we're going to explore the process by which we learn who we are as a person and all the skills that we need to be successful and survive in the society and the culture in which we live. Now, we're going to look at the process of socialization, a process as it occurs throughout our entire lifetime. This week, we're going to define socialization, look at why is it important, and what are some of the important aspects that influence our socialization. So let's get started. Why is socialization important? Well, first we'll define what socialization is. And socialization is this lifelong process of social interaction. Anna didn't have social interaction, or Anna's daughter, and through which, as individuals, we acquire a self-identity and the physical and mental and social skills needed for survival in a society and that are essential for the survival and stability of that society. Every human being is a product of 2 forces: heredity, or biology, which is the nature portion, and the environment, or the nurture, and we're made up of both. Where sociologists focus on how humans design culture and transmit it through socialization. Social biologists, they assert that nature, or the genetic inheritance, plays a major role in shaping human behaviors. Human behaviors like war, peace, envy, cooperation. Now, sociologists, they're mostly in disagreement with the notion that biological principles can be used to explain all human behavior. Most sociologists have come to view heredity as providing the basic material, but it's society as the molding that molds this material, giving it its human characteristics. The nature of the human lies in the social. Studies of children who have been neglected or maltreated, as well as those from more extreme cases of feral or isolated children, and from the intro and Genie in your textbook, have shown that the level of care and interaction during the early years directly impacts individuals' emotional and intellectual capacities as an adult. So what are some of the consequences to children of isolation and physical abuse as contrast with the social interaction and parental affection? Essentially, when children are getting their needs met through affection, warmth, closeness, they tend to see the world as safe and comfortable, a place of trustworthy people in it. Children exposed to less than adequate care are not emotionally supported, and often are rejected and abused, often see the world as hostile and something to fear. This really puts a very fine point on the importance of the social relationships, the social relations that we're exposed to, and what we learn about the world and ourselves. Now, this is very much the case with non-humans like apes. Isolated children, if left without contact or stimulation, will not gain language if not exposed to language before the age of 10. That's a very important element. Sociologists emphasize that the social environment is a crucial part of an individual's socialization. It's essential for the individual's survival and growth. It's essential for the survival and stability of society. It's the glue, if you will. And its content varies from culture to culture. What we learn in Canada is not the same as what is learned in other cultures around the world. Now, what we believe about ourselves, our society, and the world is largely a product of our interactions with others. The people, groups, and/or the institutions that teach us that we need to know to participate in society, these are known as agents of socialization. So we're going to begin with one of the first agents of socialization, and that's family. It's probably the most important agent for children. Family is variable. You could have an intact biological family, you could be single-parented by family, you could have same-sex family, and any other number of variations. Our initial concept of self, our language, beliefs, social class, ethnic background, geography, that is, whether we're from the East Coast, the West Coast, urban or rural, are all transmitted by our family of orientation. Now that's just meaning the family we're born into is our family of orientation. Now functionalists, they indicate that the family is its one primary function is emotional support, the security of the family, acceptance within the family, and acceptance of closeness and love. Depending on the socioeconomic status, families are teaching their children what their experience with power, money, and future expectations can be, and will likely be for them. So if you're born in a family of lower income, you might learn something completely different about society than someone who's born into a family of high income. Socialization is also bidirectional, known as reciprocal socialization. Not only are we as children and adults influenced by being socialized, we also influence the socializers. So not only are children influenced by parents, but children influence parents. The second agent we'll touch on is school. Daycare, elementary school is where the needs of the whole may override the needs of the individual. It's maybe the first time that children, when they get into school, is recognizing they're not the only center of the earth. It prepares children for adulthood. Functionalists see schools as having several functions. Socialization is one of them. It's the transmission of culture, the social control and placement in society, where we will be in situation. And by contrast, conflict theorists point to a different experience that students have based on their social class, ethnic background, neighborhood, and gender. The conflict, they identify what they call the hidden curriculum that teaches children about the value of competition, materialism, work, instead of play and obedience to authority. Thus, socializing children for the workforce, where you need to know your place rather than for there to be your own well-being. Now, the third group, agent, if you will, of socialization becomes your peer group. Peer groups can be one of the greater influences in our adolescence. People who share common interests and social interests seem to group together, and it's a sense of belonging that can be gained, self-worth. It's a large part of our socialization that our peers can influence, is who we think we are and how valued we are. Peers enable us to explore our separate selves from our families. We become more aware of what conforming means and what the risks of not conforming are, all of which helps us in our cultural socialization. Now, a fourth group would be media. Now, media, it's argued that it reflects every aspect of society, but not necessarily accurately. It affects children, teens, and adults. It can include print, web-based, radio, TV, social media, news, magazines, numerous. And there are, of course, issues associated with the role of media. Media informs us about events, and we are exposed and introduced to a wide range of people. We have access to many varied viewpoints and issues. The issues of commercialism, what do we need to buy and what influences are there? Entertainment is a huge influence, and many hours exposed to many media. Varied in terms of its positiveness and negative images, of all manner of issues, people, ideas, perspectives. Knowing how to wade through and critically think our way to useful and meaningful outcomes can be much more difficult today than maybe it was in the past. Now, in addition to those four that we just mentioned, family, school, peers, and media, the following agents are not so much covered in your text, but however, they are emerging agents, and we can also consider these. Religion, where religion influences our morality, our belief systems, and of course, choices that we make and how we treat and see others. Sports and sports teams. It reinforces the concept of team, and it influences things that we will purchase and how we align ourselves with teams and players. And lastly, we can touch on the workplace. The workplace, again, about teams, friendships, and a place where we spend a great deal of our adult life. Now, we do get specific socialization about being male and female, or more accurately, masculine and feminine. Gender socialization, it looks, to the agents, starting with family, teaching us how to behave in a male or a female manner. That includes how you're supposed to dress, talk, behave, attitudes. Our peers, medias, and school dress codes, if they occur, all can and do have influences throughout our life. That's really important because within gender socialization, that's a whole nother course. I teach a course in gender studies and looking at how we treat and emerge differently in terms of our gender and the role that can play in our socialization that will be with us for an entire life. So that's going to end right now for the part one, our initial part of socialization. Next week, we'll look at part two. All right, everybody, keep up the good work, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.